Hello, hello, hello. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome to a new episode of the Yoga for All Bodies video podcast. As you can see on your screen today, I have an amazing guest for you, and I'm so excited. Tristan Katz is a writer, educator, and a digital strategist. Tristan offers services for businesses and entrepreneurs centered around queer identity and transgender awareness with an anti-oppression and intersectional lens. With their work, Tristan supports those who seek to grow their work while staying aligned with practices of yoga, equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Hello, Tristan.
Hi, Natalia. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here too. I love your work. I love what you're doing, and it's so needed. So I'm so happy we're here. So I would like to know, how did yoga came to your life, or what's your story with yoga?
I love this. I love this question always. It never gets old. I started practicing yoga in 2000, so it's been 20 plus years, which feels amazing. It was I was an undergrad in Northern California, and a friend, I was really depressed. I was having a very hard time with anxiety, depression, disordered eating, and a friend of mine said, you should come with me to this yoga class. And it was a Bikram class, and I loved it. I couldn't stop thinking about it after. I had never felt like I was a strong, physically capable person. I'm really short, and I was teased and bullied a lot as a kid. And so I didn't know that I had any physical capabilities or a sense of physical power. And that class made me feel for the first time like I could be in my body and claim it. It was a really empowering experience, and there was something really transformative and healing about being in a room with other bodies, breathing and moving and exploring these shapes. And I started practicing regularly in hot vinyasa, basically, first Bikram and then hot vinyasa, and then eventually found my way very gradually to what I eventually called room temperature yoga, and really just started trying to figure out what was happening in the room, because I knew we were doing these physical shapes, but I was having this experience that was beyond physical, right? And I moved around a bit. I lived in California and was practicing there, and then I moved to New Mexico and was practicing there through graduate school, and then I relocated to Portland, Oregon, which is where I live now, and took my first class that had any element of yoga philosophy in it. And the teacher was talking about the Bhagavad Gita, and I had no idea what she was referring to. I had only started to understand what a chaturanga was, and I didn't know that there was something beyond the physical practice because teachers weren't talking about it. So once I learned that there were these philosophical teachings that applied to day-to-day life and how we live and move through the world and move through a relationship, then I was just really pulled in even deeper. And it was around that time that I started looking into 200-hour teacher trainings and did that whole thing a couple times. Actually, I did 200-hour teacher trainings back to back. Actually, I just I wanted to be in it all the time. And yeah, eventually I taught for a few years, mostly in outreach settings. I taught a chair-based yoga class in a hospital and in recovery centers, and eventually just felt like I was missing being a student, and I wasn't getting the same nourishment or the same magic. I was constantly looking for how to improve as a teacher. And so I quit teaching completely, and not long after that started working with yoga teachers to help them with their marketing and their businesses, and then stepped into educating around trans inclusion and queer inclusion in yoga settings. And yeah, it's kind of all evolved from there. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your story, and for also mentioning and normalizing that, yes, you can take the trainings, maybe try it for a while, this teaching gig, and then leave it. Yes. Yeah. And it's so true. Sometimes we start teaching, and it happened now during the pandemic, not so much because I'm practicing because I'm at home, so it's easier.
Yeah.
But before, yes, sometimes I would be teaching 14 classes a week and not practicing. like not even coming at night and breathing deeply or a yoga nidra, nothing. So
yeah, when you're constantly holding that space for other people, like I'm learning more and more, it's so important to have space held for me if I'm going to show up and hold space for others. So,
absolutely.
And yoga teachers are holding a lot of space, and we're not always even aware of what's happening, but energetically stuff is happening, whether that's on Zoom or in person. And tending to ourselves and giving ourselves space to practice and be with our breath and our bodies is just so important so that we can, you know, fill the cup and then go support others. Yeah.
Yes, because we're sharing something that comes from the heart, comes from experience. We are listening to what other people are sharing with us. Yes. I learned it the hard way, I think, or a pandemic had to happen in order for me to learn it.
Yeah.
Yes. And what's the story behind you finding marketing, branding? What happened and why through the lens you're sharing it?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So let's see, after I graduated college, I thought I was going to be a journalist. I was really interested in truth telling and activism. And I started working with a local paper in New Mexico. And I was also waiting tables at the time because that was what was paying the bills. And somehow through being part of the service industry, I lost my creative spark and my why for the writing. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And so I quit. And it was around that time that my father, who is a longtime writer and educator in the construction industry, he had started a business teaching all-day events in person around the United States for carpenters and contractors and home builders. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come and just like be my admin person?" And I said, sure, you know, I could do it on my own hours remotely. It was flexible. It was supporting somebody I cared about. Great. And I started learning all these new skills. And very quickly he said, "I think you need to be my business manager." And I said, sure. And I was teaching myself how to design websites and how to market his events and how to reach people and how to grow his brand and his business so that he could teach more people and have a successful business and make meaningful change in the industry. So just like trial and error, self-study, lots of like online tutorials and learning from other people in marketing and graphic design. Somehow along the way, I amassed this skill set. And, you know, I was working in the construction industry, which was not my jam or my passion. But around the time after my yoga teacher training, I thought, wow, I could take this and support yoga teachers with the same skills and take my all the things I've learned and actually work with people who are doing something that I'm deeply connected to and that I really care about and that I've gained so much from. So I started by helping with some retreat coordination and workshop coordination and things of that nature. And somehow along the way realized that the marketing piece was really where I was interested, because I feel like a lot of us as yoga teachers, first of all, we aren't taught how to go into the world and make a business for ourselves. I mean, that's why your work is also so important and why I know so many people care about what you're doing, because people out there need to understand how to thrive as yoga teachers. And you know, teacher trainings aren't giving us those tools. So I wanted to challenge the narrative that it's icky or hard or inherently problematic, that it's all just about selling something, because I think that marketing is really rooted in relationship building and in connection. And suddenly it felt like, and the thing I'm talking about all the time on social media these days is that we can bring the teachings and practices of yoga into our marketing. Like, what are you teaching in your classes? How can you teach that in your marketing, right? How can you make your marketing be a point of service, a point where you bring something that's rich and meaningful so that you're not just showing up and saying, here's my class schedule, I hope you come practice with me, because we need to hear when you're teaching and what days and on what platform or what studio. We need more than that, right? We need to get a sense of who the person is and what it might be like to practice with them. So I've just kind of naturally found this thread of yoga and marketing and all along the way, I really wanted to bring social justice awareness into my work. I've been studying social movements since I was 15, and really kind of challenging the narratives in my own mind that this country, the United States, is something that it isn't, right? And so somewhere along the way, I found Michelle Cassandra Johnson's book, Skill in Action, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is how it all fits together, right? Like, yoga is social justice. And that's a big statement. Let's just say yoga invites us into the practice of social justice. Mm-hmm. But to me, I just wanted to be speaking to both. And I felt like, especially over the last couple of years, as things have really shifted with the pandemic, with the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter uprising, like, I couldn't separate them anymore. And so I've just stepped more and more fully into tying it all together, yoga, social justice, and marketing, and trying to help yoga teachers understand how to embody the teachings, not just on the mat and not just off the mat, but even online, right? Even on social media, on our websites, in our newsletters. Like, how can we make these places not just points of connection and relationship building, but also how can we contribute to these really important conversations that I think we're all kind of reckoning with one way or another?
Yes. So I agree. I resonate. Yes. And you mentioned also that in the teacher trainings, we don't get the tools. Yeah. Absolutely agree. Yes. Yeah. I'm a journalist, if you didn't know.
I didn't. That makes so much sense, though. Of course you are.
So when I did my training, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, how I wanted to share my message. So when I received, I think they were like 3 hours of marketing. and it was like, I love the teacher and everything, super helpful if you know nothing about how to put yourself out there. But it wasn't enough, because it was create your website. Okay, but you have your website, but how people are going to find you if they are not Googling you, you're not on social media? Why do you have your website? Yeah. So things like that really make the difference. And as you were mentioning, yes, it's all about creating value. Yeah. Every time I see yoga teachers only showing up to publish their weekly schedule, I say, people go to those classes? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
Because you need to show your face, how you speak. For example, one of my biggest fears when I started teaching here in the United States, because in Chile I didn't taught yoga, I was only a journalist, was my accent. Is it going to work here? Am I going to get hired? And you know what? The moment I said, this is me, this is how I speak, and I put myself out there in social media, people liked it. Yeah. So I see a lot of like fears around that, saying what you really think, what you really believe, because you're going to be judged. Maybe you're not going to be hired. And it's the other way around. Yes, you need to say what you stand for. Yeah. For example, the first time I spoke my truth, it was, I would say 2 years ago in my Instagram. I took a class that was so unwelcoming, so no variations, talking about weight loss, like all the things that go wrong in yoga. So I felt like, no. So I remember it was an online class, and I posted and I started writing. And I published that manifesto, and that day, my social media started growing because I lost the fear. So if you're watching this interview, you need to speak your truth. Yes. No matter if someone doesn't agree, that's not your people. Easy.
Yes. I like, I think one of the things I struggled with after my 200-hour teacher training was finding my voice, right? Like, I just kept repeating phrases that my teacher had said. And I remember thinking, like, how do I get past this block, right? Like, how do I find my authentic phrasing of how to cue a pose, or my authentic phrasing of how to be in meditation, right? And not just repeat the things that I've heard all the time, and really find myself and connect with myself and what it is that I want to contribute. And I feel like the same goes for the marketing piece, right? And we have to find a way to contribute to existing conversations with our own authenticity, right? We need to show up and be authentic and genuine, because that's how we make connection, right? Like, people are going to come to take your classes because they get a sense of who you are, and you are lit up by being true to who you are. And then we feel that, and we want to be with that light, right? And learn from that light and gain from that light. And to me, that's a part of teaching yoga, and that's a part of marketing, and the two go hand in hand. And I mean, one of the ways you and I first connected, that we had been, I think, following each other for a little bit of time on Instagram, was you spoke out about a yoga journal situation as it was unfolding. And I can't even remember what it was, but it was definitely problematic. And I was just like, yes, like, thank you for reminding me to speak up, because I was just inclined to just scroll right by it and roll my eyes. Like, there's yoga journal, just perpetuating this expectation that, you know, yoga is this or yoga is that, or we all care about losing weight or whatever it was. And I just, like, your voice helped reignite my voice in that moment, right? So it's not just about like, oh, thank you for contributing. It's about inspiring others to engage and show up and speak their truths too. And it's just so important. It's so important from the practices standpoint. It's so important from the business standpoint. You know, this is what it means to bring the two together to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's also a thing of not letting things that have been normalized for so long, for our, I don't know, in 20, 30 more years, things that you would hear now, people would say, no, you can't do that, because it's, no. And I think, as I'm from Chile, and I did my teacher training here in 2018, I came with an open mind, because, for example, even going to the grocery store for me was super new.
Yeah.
Everything was new. So I said, okay, I'm going to, and it's the way I approach any situation. I go, I observe, I listen, and then I started getting all these red flags. And I said, if I think this is not normal, more people are thinking the same.
Yes. Yes.
So we need to speak. Yes.
Yeah. And I was taught very explicitly to not speak up, you know, I was taught to not acknowledge parts of my identities publicly in my business, in my marketing. I was taught, you know, to not name my queerness publicly, to not name my Jewish religion publicly. I mean, there were so many like really explicit things that I was taught to keep quiet about, and to compartmentalize and put myself in these little boxes so that I could be more marketable or more tangible or more likable or something. And I mean, it was really mind-blowing for me to step into my own business and to create new rules, right? And it was, I had to hear people tell me, like, no, we need you to own your queerness. We need you to talk about your Jewish background. Like, we need to hear that from you. And that gave me so much permission, and it gave me so much possibility to heal too, and to like reclaim parts of myself. And I just feel like, you know, a lot of us internalize messages around like staying small, not taking up too much space, being quiet, making people comfortable, being likable, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And these narratives are not helping us. They're not helping us individually or collectively. And if the practices and teachings of yoga are about individual and collective transformation and individual and collective healing and well-being and recovery from trauma, I mean, in order to pursue all of those beautiful things, then we have to be speaking truth, right? We can't keep ourselves small. We can't put ourselves in little boxes that we hide in the back corner somewhere. We have to bring everything to air and light. And to me, that's not just like in alignment with who I am and in alignment with the teachings, but in alignment with the world that I want to be a part of co-creating or participating in. And it's all tied together. So yeah, I just love that, you know, this conversation is so beautiful and it just inspires me all over again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's so true. When you were mentioning those like requests of hiding parts of you, I grew up in a home. So yoga has also been super healing for my relationship with my family. We love each other, but I grew up listening, one, that I needed to shrink my body. Because if I wanted to be successful, if I was a journalist and I wanted to be on screen, I needed to be thin and things like that. So super harmful, mentally, physically, everything. And things like, you need to laugh a little bit lower because you laugh too loud, and then don't get so emotional. And now I realized that all the things people were telling me to change are now my biggest skills in my business.
Yes.
So don't listen to that. And it's the only way to show up like you. Imagine if you wake up every day and you have to fake your persona. Mm-hmm. How are you going to do that for even a year? No.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of toxic stuff, right? Like, be smaller, be thinner, you're too loud, you're too emotional. Like, I've heard all of it too. And, you know, I'm still healing from all of those messages that I was getting from people who loved me, right? And from like mainstream culture, you know? And I've heard it too in yoga classes. I've definitely had teachers over the years who are like, since we all want a bikini body, we better do like, you know, whatever. And it's just like, that's not what I'm here for. I want to challenge those messages. I want to move beyond them. And, you know, I want to be part of the conversation, this conversation where we talk about the stuff that we heard and how we challenged it ourselves and how we challenge it in our work. And to me, that's the yoga, right? And I mean, that's what we need to be doing. But I know that not all yoga teachers or yoga students feel the same way. And we're all having different experiences in relationship to yoga and to these messages. And it's a really interesting time to exist in this larger community, you know, with everything that we're kind of wrestling with collectively, with COVID, with socio-political situations, with climate change. It's just, you know, I just want to keep coming back to like what lights me up, what brings me joy, what keeps me grounded so that I can keep showing up, so that I can keep challenging these messages, both professionally and personally, because that's what I need, you know? And like you said, like, if we need it, then somebody else must need it. Like, we're not the only two people who heard these messages, right? Yeah, it's really, really powerful stuff. Yeah.
Yes. And it is, as you were mentioning, a super interesting time to be alive.
Yeah.
Because we have the power of social media. Now you can really share your message out loud with the world. More people will resonate with you. For example, when I did my teacher training, I think social media was mentioned like, and have your Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. If you really show up, share your voice, you will attract your people. It takes time. Yes, it takes time. It takes the work. It takes the work, but it's so worth it because you are actually changing lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the model of becoming a yoga teacher, like the traditional model that was you take your training, you start teaching so many classes, then you start teaching the retreats, and then you become a yoga trainer. I think that model is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah, we need a new paradigm, you know? And it is like things have really shifted in COVID, and the way yoga teachers reach people has shifted. Mm-hmm. It's not just relying on studios anymore, because the studio model is shifting too, right? Like a lot of studios have closed, or they don't have physical spaces anymore. I mean, you're absolutely right. And yes, social media, it does take work, it does take effort, it does take energy. And it is a messy place, right? It's just like inherently messy because we're all there, all the humans doing the human things. It's going to be inherently messy from time to time. But I do agree with you. I have found not just professional success from how I show up on social media, but true, I feel community on social media. And it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, I've made new friends in COVID on Instagram. I've, made relationships. I've built relationships with people and stepped more fully into my own work and path because of how I relate to social media. And to me, it's a very beautiful thing. It is inherently messy and complicated, and I have to struggle with it all the time, like my own mental relationship to what's happening on the digital screen, and getting caught up with like the numbers and wanting to be liked and worrying that people are judging me and worrying that I'm X, Y, and Z, the list goes on. But that's to me where the yoga comes in, right? Because I get to notice like, oh, look, there's my brain doing that brain thing again. Like, where's my breath? Where are my feet? Where is the air on my skin? How can I come back to being present and kind and gentle and compassionate with myself and trust, right? That if I just keep paying attention and stay in relationship with people too, who are willing to hold me accountable, who are willing to say like, hey, that thing you shared actually rubbed me the wrong way. And here's why. And let me offer you some of my own lived experience in this moment to educate you on what you don't know, right? Like that's, to me, the next piece is like bringing the social justice into the conversation of marketing. And that part is so beautiful too, being able to be with the discomfort of doing something wrong or harmful and not knowing it. Yoga prepares us for that as well, right? Like I can hold it. I can be gentle with myself and also open to hearing something that I could not see before, right? It's all, again, like I just keep doing this in this conversation. I just all see it so beautifully tying together. It's just a really ripe place to be right now, I think, Instagram, social media in general. And yeah, I mean, here I am having this conversation with you, which is 100% because of Instagram. So as much as it's like, oh, Instagram, oh my God, like the algorithm and this and that and people getting shadow banned, it's like, yes, it is a mess. And there's good stuff happening too. Yeah.
Yes. And it's so important, the mindset we approach social media. Because if you enter social media saying, okay, I'm going to build my business, and you see it like everybody's a competition, no. No, I see social media as a tool for me to explore the world.
Yes.
So, for example, my feed has parts of the world, food, dogs, a lot of dogs. Yoga, yes, but we need to expand it. It's not only a thing, I'm going to open my social media to work on my business. No, you need to make it organically into your life. Yeah. That's how it's going to work. If not, because it's messy, as you were mentioning. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And for me, the bigger the platform you have, the more you can help others amplify their voices.
Yes.
And I'm saying this in terms of the shadow ban. So, for example, I love sharing my platform. I love it. I know there's some people that are like, no, why I'm going to do that? For me, it's part. For example, no one helped me when I started as a yoga teacher. No one. I was from Chile, no friends, speaking English, so. So now that I have a bigger platform, I want to amplify and help others. Because for me, that's part of I learned what I learned with yoga. So yes, so do it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm always like, share who you're learning from, share who your teachers are. Isn't that part of carrying the lineage of yoga, right? Like, who did we study with? Who are we learning from? And then who are we sharing our space with? Absolutely. It's just such a beautiful thing to create those relationships and to credit people, right? And to uplift people. And it's really needed. And I hear so much. You had said something like, what I heard you say was, how do we stand out in an oversaturated market, right? There's so many yoga teachers, and it's like, this is how you stand out, right? Like, show up authentically, share yourself, be vulnerable from time to time, but also, have some boundaries around that, right? Like, don't share what you don't want to share. But lean into being honest and candid and genuine and share who matters to you, right? In your practice or in your life or your dog. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have so much agency to create the way we take up space and to be really intentional about it. And I think it can be a really beautiful thing. I've heard people say, like, your generation, all these selfies, like, it's so self-involved and, it's so superficial. And I actually think it's really beautiful. I think it's really empowering to show our faces and to take up that space and to share who we are. And that's how we make the connection and the relationship and how we build communities. So
Yes. And you mentioned in all your promos, your marketing stuff, conscious marketing. how would you define that, and why is it important to share the message from that lens?
Yeah, I think that we can move through marketing and be kind of like not awake, like not aware that our identities are inherently playing a role of what it means to take up space on the digital plane. Not aware of how our messaging might be affecting other people. Not aware of certain moments in time where, you know, for example, in January, when the Capitol in the United States was invaded, and I saw people just like promoting their work as if everything was normal, but it wasn't normal, right? Like that was a really traumatic moment. And if we didn't pause and understand that it was traumatic and either tend to ourselves or speak to it publicly, and just went about, you know, marketing our work as if everything was normal, like, what are we doing? To me, that's not aligned with yoga. Yoga invites us to acknowledge what's happening in the present moment and to pause and slow down and check in, right? And tune in. And to me, that's what conscious marketing is it's an acknowledgement that we can't just go about things as business as usual at times. It's an acknowledgement that how we take up space can have an impact on other people. It's an acknowledgement that our identities are inherently a part of that process. You know, yoga teaches us that we're all interconnected and we're all made of the same core essence, but we're also having very different experiences based on our identities, based on the culture and the systems in which we live, right? And to me, conscious marketing is an invitation to practice awareness around that and to really combine the tools and teachings of yoga and social justice with our marketing. To me, that's conscious marketing. And, you know, that phrase, it's a work in progress. Like, I mean, everything, you know, I do and everything we are, I hope, is a work in progress, but that's the phrase I've landed on for now. And you know, it always requires or involves a little bit of an explanation, but that's what I'm exploring in my work and how I approach the offerings that I teach related to conscious marketing.
Love it. And hand in hand with yoga, one more time. Yes. Yes. I see so many people that are like hiring business coaches, buying those templates, a year of content for your business. And no, especially if you're a yoga teacher, no, don't do that, because awareness comes first. That's why it's so important to know, okay, this is what I stand for, even though I might stand for a lot of things, but this is my flag. This is how I want to contribute to change the world, to change the things in yoga, and run with that.
Yeah.
But from your authenticity.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the other thing that I'm doing in my work, in the conscious marketing work that I offer is like helping make marketing more accessible for each individual person, because we all have different creative inclinations. And, you know, some of us might wake up on a Tuesday and write the post and share the post. And some of us might need to write the post on Sunday and then sit with it for several days before they post it, you know, like each of us has different relationships to how we create content and how we share that content. And I want to help people tune in to their individual needs and their individual capacities and their personal inclinations and the time and energy and creativity, and also help everybody make marketing more informed from an anti-racist perspective, which is, you know, I am a learner in that work. And from a disability justice perspective, I'm a learner in that work. From a gender diversity perspective, which is a place where I'm actually having lived experience and can offer that lens. But I want to bring all of these experiences and identities and awarenesses into marketing. I think we have to. And so that's some of the way I'm working with that as well. Yeah, it's really rich stuff. It really is. And I get really excited about it. And I don't know if other people are as excited about it, but that's okay. People are getting something out of it. That's all that matters. I'll share my excitement, you know?
I get excited too. Yes. Yeah. Because I think that's when the magic happens. If you're sharing something that really lights up your soul, and it's like energizes you, that you can speak like 10 hours, that's your thing.
That's it. Yep.
Yes. And never forcing yourself to do something. That's the other thing I always hear from yoga teachers. I need to do this. I need to do this. Do you? If you don't want to be on camera, you don't want to create videos, don't do it. Do what you want to do.
Exactly. Like I haven't made a real post. I just haven't, like, I don't have it in me. I just, like, I'm sure it'd be fun. I just don't want to spend the time on it. It just hasn't happened yet for me. Like, is that a valuable way to deliver a message and content? Absolutely. If that's your jam, do it. But it's not my jam, right? Like, and showing up on videos on Instagram in general is not how I roll. Like, I want to share carousel slides. I want to share static posts. I want to share photos of me and my dog. And, you know, to me, that's my way in. So I have to honor that, because I, like you're saying, like, this whole I should do something because they're telling me I should do something, I want to rewrite and challenge that. You know, I don't think there are any shoulds. I think we each have to tune into what is natural and accessible for each of us, right? And if reels aren't accessible for you, then you shouldn't make them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But we have to, again, like, back to how yoga comes into play. Like, to me, yoga gives us the opportunity to check in and really align with those inclinations, and then say, like, oh, look, I don't like making reels. I'm gonna stop, right? But I like making this kind of content, so I'll keep doing that. And then I'll share that in my newsletter too, because why not? And I mean, there's just so many different ways to explore it, but I really want to talk about the personal, you know, the personal experience of it, because I want to get rid of the shoulds. No more shoulds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, how can people find you? Give all the information, promote yourself, everything.
Thank you, Natalia. So on Instagram, I'm at Tristan Katz Creative. That's Tristan Katz, and then creative. And my website is katz-creative.com. That's Katz, and then a little -sign, creative.com. And you can stay connected with me on both of those platforms. You can subscribe to my newsletter, which is on my website in various different places. And I offer a lot of sometimes, like, really special stuff in my newsletter, personal reflections, thoughts on marketing, thoughts on branding, stuff that I'm not necessarily sharing on social media. And I'm about to launch a group mentorship program on yoga, social justice, and your marketing, where we'll dive into all of this in detail over 5 months as a community, and really, like, breathe together over time. And I'm going to bring in some guest facilitators to talk about some of the things you and I have been talking about anti-racism in our work, and power and money, and how we relate to money. And it should be a really rich experience. So I'll be sharing that soon. And I'm just really grateful to have had the opportunity to join you for this conversation. It's lighting me up. So thank you, Natalia, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you also for the work you're doing, for sharing your passion, and for sharing so much valuable information. Yes. So if you're watching this video, like it, share it, subscribe, because this is a message everybody needs to know. Marketing can be done your own way. Yoga is for everybody.
Yeah.
And yes.
Thank you.
A big hug.
Yes, you too.
We stay in contact. Big hugs in your homes. And see you in a new episode of the Yoga for All Bodies video podcast. Bye.